AKB.
Hey, how's it going, Daniel?
Good. And I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to probably have to drop off temporarily very soon after the meeting starts.
Okay.
My sister-in-law and nephew had just flew in from San Francisco, and their flight was like an hour early. So, and and this is a controlled access building, so I have to go down and get them when they get
Yeah,
here.
not a problem. Not a problem.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to be
yeah.
gone for what, 5, 10 minutes, something like that?
Probably 10 to 15. It's a big
Okay.
building, and I have to
Yeah,
go to
yeah, that's fine.
pick up their parking pass. Um, the one thing, and I did not see a response, and maybe there was one, is the number of people who are likely to attend that drag show. Um,
Oh, yeah, it was it a student that sent that?
yeah, it was a student who sent it, and they really wanted to sort of restrict the audience to just students because I guess they have
Yeah,
limited capacity.
yeah.
So they're not asking for us to show up and support it, but they were asking if we had anything we could give them to hand out. And I was thinking fans because what's better than a
Yeah, the
people
fans.
waving fans at a drag show? But I don't know
Yeah.
how many we've got.
Oh, how many do we have?
Yeah,
We should have 50 or so, maybe more, maybe close to 100. I don't know, but I'll take a look to see, get you a count on those on Monday.
yeah, because maybe we can give them like 25 of them and then hand the rest of them out at the quad
Yeah, okay.
at homecoming.
Sure. I was just glad to see that they reached out. They, went to the mailbox that we have for out at Oxy and
Yeah,
were interested. So all good.
very
Excellent.
good, very
All
cool.
right. All right. Do you have the agenda? Should we put that um in the chat
Yeah,
for people? Or I can find it. I just didn't, I just got on. I saw
I,
you were on, so I jumped on. I can still find that.
yeah. If you don't mind, because I'm on my phone here,
Sure.
and it's next to impossible. I actually tried to find it on my phone, and I couldn't. So I've got my iPad over here with it up,
No problem.
and
No
so it's
problem at
just
all. Yeah. Okay. How's stuff at the office now that you've got what, 40 days now, something like that?
yeah, yeah. And with the lack of a speaker, that means that they can't pass anything
Yeah.
until they elect somebody, and it's likely that they'll elect somebody who's much more conservative. So it's very likely that in 40 days we'll end up furloughed. So,
Yeah.
but at least I've done all the work. I mean, I took about 2 weeks to really create a definitive communication plan
Uh-huh.
because we have to communicate to our travelers and to travel managers what they're supposed to do when that
Right.
happens. So,
Right. Just flashing this up. This is the
yep.
most recent. That's the one we want. We're
Um,
good.
I'm I'm guessing it is. I honestly can't see
Oh,
it
you're
on
on the
my
phone. You
phone.
can't really see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's got two TBD in terms of who's attending, who's there,
Yep.
review of the last meeting, briefing, pin, step, and repeat. Yeah. This should be it. Quick. Yeah. This is it. This is the most
Yeah.
recent.
That. Yeah. That it looks good.
Okay. Great. I just want to make sure I have that, and then I can share it with people or put it up on the screen for people to look at. I got to tell you, it's frightening to think of Jim Jordan as the leader of the House, and Steve Scalise is like not that much better. I mean, it's sad to think like he'd be preferable over Jim Jordan, but he would.
Yeah. It's the whole thing is just a shit show. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
and,
Although
and I think that they're going to pay a huge price for it too.
that's what I'm hoping because there has not been a great track record for Republicans in the Speaker of the House. I mean,
Yeah.
going back to the original Orange one, who was the guy I forget his name, who
Oh,
seemed
Boehner.
Boehner. Yeah, I mean, he again, you compromise, you work, you reach across the aisle, you're out. I mean, it's amazing. So we'll see, but to have Congress paralyzed at this point, not good, not good. So we'll see. Um, yeah. All right. Well, uh, we're a couple of weeks away from homecoming. Um, and next weekend,
Yeah.
busy one for me. I've got two alumni events. I've got Alouette, the educational alums, doing something in the morning into about 2 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock to 5, Okla doing something. So it's going to be pretty
Cool.
crazy for me next Saturday. But hey, that's the job. There you go. So
Well,
Yeah.
and I saw some really good photos from last night's dinner too. That
Yeah.
I wish I were able to come out twice, but I wasn't able to.
Oh no, no,
Um,
no, no. It's yeah. I'm glad that
and
they had it and stuff. They had certain space restrictions, and so not everybody could go to it. But I heard it
yeah,
went very well, and that's great. That's great. Yeah, yeah. So
I
good.
saw my old student sponsee, um, Lande Ajose. She's I, I I don't know if you know her, but she's on the board of trustees, I think, still. But she was class of '86, I think.
Uh-huh.
Um, but she was one of my student sponsees, and because they assigned me to her because she lived in San Francisco,
Uh-huh.
and she was being I I don't know quite the whole story, but Joe Corvosa told me, but she was living with Nancy Pelosi's family at the time.
Oh
So
wow.
and so she's had some good contacts over the years.
Yeah, yeah. You know, reading about Dianne Feinstein's, funeral and her life, and you had mentioned that you remember exactly where you were when Harvey Milk was killed, and how she was the one that either brought the news, officially said he'd been shot and killed, along with another gentleman's name I can't recall.
Yeah, Mary Moscone.
The mayor Moscone, right?
Yeah.
It really was. There was my alma mater, Hampshire College, is like a film school, even though it's a small liberal arts school. And I'm pretty sure it was one of our alums that did the life and times of Harvey Milk.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. Ken Burns is one of our big ones. So documentary film has always been something very, very important to Hampshire alums. Storytelling, being able to get out there and tell the story, and it's just what an amazing life. And that would have been late '70s, early '80s, early '80s.
It was late '70s. I think I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
And the reason it's so vivid is that Dianne Feinstein was the person who made the official announcement. And immediately after she makes the announcement, there's a woman who cries out in anguish in the background because
Yeah.
it was new news for them.
Yeah.
And every time I hear it, or even if I've read about it, I've read a transcript, I can picture exactly where that
That's
that that comes in
yeah.
because I've seen it
Yeah.
so many times and I've lived it so many times.
Yeah. Yeah. Les, we're just talking about Dianne Feinstein,
November 1978.
78, 78. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. And that documentary, The Life and Times of Harvey Milk, was the first time I'd heard of it. It really wasn't, it wasn't really news to the rest of the country the way it was to the Bay Area and to the LGBTQ community. And it was just an eye opener it was like, shot down a sitting council member and the mayor is like, what the fuck? Like, this really
Yeah.
happened? It was just, yeah, it was just shocking. Shocking.
And then what was worse was a year or so later when what's his face was acquitted on the Twinkie
Yeah.
defense, and that's when really riots broke out.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
I remember the riots very clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have this whole like theory about why sports are so important to straight men, is that they're able to embrace other men without anybody like
Yeah.
anything, right? You would never see a guy like leap in another guy's arms, wrap his legs around him, embrace him, and be like, "Whoa," to our society. But sports, it's all good. Everything's allowed. Everything's acceptable. So much strangeness. Yeah, yeah. So we'll give folks a little more time. Just a heads up, Daniel may have to step out for a few minutes. We'll just keep going. I have the agenda, which I will put on. If it's okay with people, I can either put it as a document into the chat, or we can do it as a shared screen. It's whatever works best. I know Maureen sometimes felt it was important that people see each other, didn't want me to use the what am I trying to say? The shared screen. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat now. Give me a second here. And that way we'll all be looking at the same thing.
Yeah, and apologies for possibly dropping out. My sister-in-law and nephew flew in from San Francisco today, and their flight was like an hour early. And here in DC, we've got a controlled access building, so I have to go down and get them when they show up.
Not a problem. Not a problem. There we go. Chat. Let me put this
Hey,
in.
Lisa. Hey, Jake.
Hello.
There we go. All right, so the agenda's in the chat if anybody wants to follow along. We'll give folks a few more minutes. We may not have to use the entire time just because we are focusing on some things that are coming up in 2 weeks, the homecoming and some other things, but people can take a look at that when they have a chance. So there we go. So tell me, someone's got good plans for the weekend, right? Someone is doing something exciting amongst us, please, because no.
Well, here in the Midwest, we're going to probably have to turn the heat on, so I'll give you that.
My friends in New England were talking about that. Of like, it's 59 degrees in my house. I can't wait any longer. I got to put it on. I used to always try to get
it got hot. It got hot here again in Palm Springs, so we had to turn the air conditioning back on.
It's hot here in North Hollywood. It is. They're expecting 98 degrees or something. So,
as Daniel could tell you, if I could pick, I would much rather be in Palm Springs or some other lovely part of the Mojave Desert. Hands down.
Yeah.
No. Lisa, I remember we used to use Bain de Soleil SPF 3.
We look good, Daniel. You know what? I will say this just anecdotally, as we maybe are waiting for others to join. I saw a classmate of me and Daniel's over the weekend. She was here on business. Her name is Jill Johnson. She's in the local area of Arizona. But I talked with her about what we're doing and in terms of collecting allies, not necessarily for this type of event, but events. And she's 100% behind it. She can be involved in some productive way. I think that would be great. I don't know, Daniel, what your thoughts might be on that, but
that's so cool. Jill has always been just a wonderful, wonderful person.
And some of these people didn't. I don't know about classmates you had, but sometimes we had experiences where some of our classmates would find out stuff and be like, WTF back then, like what's going on. And Jill never really did that. I think sometimes she found herself in the same misfit boat as some of us did. And that was good. And so she was really excited to know that this was going on. So anyway.
Great. And speaking from us from the administrator side, Lisa, feel free to just pass along, links to anything, or if you want to invite them to come to a meeting. No permission needed from us.
So in that regard, I'm going to throw another classmate of me and Daniel's under the bus because why not? But it's somebody in your local area. And personally, I've never spoken to this human about this, so I'm going way out on a limb, but I would say, Daniel, Lynn Rosenberg is in the local area. And consider her a huge ally to this group, and reaching out to her for homecoming would be easy, right? Because she's right there.
Sure.
So
you know what? I'll do that because I've been communicating with her over the last few years over the class fund, because she did the $50,000 matching for that. So so I definitely somebody who
absolute
could
ally.
be a great ally.
Absolute. And again, when people would come out or they would get some abandonment, this was not the kind of person over on the cisgender straight side and even would be like, don't, excuse me, fuck with my friends kind of thing. So, I'm just thinking about also people in the local area to the point of our mass is not just ourselves. And, I can't get there from Chicago. I would love to. I'm in an active teaching block, or man, would I love to. But
Yeah.
That sort of links to something I was going to mention, is that if we were to create our own fund that people could donate to Oxy to designate to our fund, have it still be tax deductible, have it count as whatever alumni contribution, I think there are a lot of straight allies that would be more than happy to support us in that way, especially if they know what we're doing. Of course, we have to clarify a little bit more what we're doing if we got that kind of money. But I think that is actually a really good way to involve straight allies.
I actually also think there are some GLBT people who don't always contribute to universities because they can't designate their money places they want to go. I am ashamed to say I'm one, but I work at a university, so I know how they are. So I think, Les, that's a great idea to say, could we at least have it somehow assigned to us, or a fund that we could generate? Like the class funds, wouldn't it be this parallel thing, Daniel? I don't know anything about that, so I look to you.
Yeah, it actually is. And so I think that's a really good a good note to start the meeting on, because we'll get to that in the agenda, because we did have a discussion about that last week, believe it or not. So KB, do you want to kick it off and then I'll take over?
Sure, yeah. Okay, I want to welcome everybody, and I'm going to do a quick review of notes from the last meeting, so we're all kind of on the same page here. We talked about goals last meeting of recruiting 1 to 2 new members to the Oxy out of Oxy committee. We also talked about the archive oral history project with the Oxy Library, engagement and socializing the group. Jose said he would contact Phoebe Pentekin, 22. She might be interested in joining. We discussed a little bit on Rainbow Connections, the article, and that was sent out to folks from the listserv. Daniel and I worked on that, so that has gone out. I also shared the current list that we are using for the Out at Oxy community. I did get some names. Thanks for updating. There were a couple people on there that had deceased, and others were suggestions, but we're happy to add people to it. Like if you speak to Lynn Rosenberg and she would like to be, added, that would be somebody we would add to that for regular communications. The Queer Archives Project is still a main focus this year. Daniel was going to contact Julie Tanaka at the library. A former adjunct professor, Rodney Hoffman, had contacted Daniel about some records he had from 79 to 2011. And Daniel was going to try to connect Rodney with Julie. Jane, who had sat in on the last meeting, Jane Peters, was going to contact a gentleman, Brian Dickey, class of 73, for additional archive materials. We had asked about what we wanted to do for Homecoming and Family and Friends Weekend in a couple of weeks. That we'll discuss more today. And then plans, goals for the year. We have ordered more Oxy lapel pins. They have arrived. We have those in the office. We will talk about potentially doing a virtual event, maybe wine tasting in the future. In December, a finals fuel event, which is just helping students with some snacks and some food for their late night studies during finals week. There was an effort to get the admitted students virtual outreach, which was with the VISTA program in April, and then the cultural graduations in May, and then an in-person Pride, LA Pride alumni social event in June. Let's see, was there anything else on here that we needed to go through? Oh, and the poll, which we did send out, we were trying to figure out what would alums want, what type of events, what cities would they want those, and I can share those results. We got about 13 or so responses from folks, but it does give us an idea of kind of what was thought to be best that we should focus on. I will share that later in the meeting when we are ready. And we were also talking about potential roles, such as communications chair for social media events chair for both in-person and virtual events, fundraising. We did have that meeting with Maureen to talk about a scholarship, a liaison with the Saga student group, and whether there was a treasurer position for someone overseeing the Out at Oxy budget. Right now, that's me keeping track of what we have done, and the step and repeat has been ordered and will be delivered hopefully on Monday. So we will have that for photo opportunities, and that'll be something we can take with us. It folds down to a carry-on bag. Nice frame, attaches with Velcro, and that's something that we'll have available. That is pretty much as much looking at the notes from the last meeting that I have.
Awesome. Let's see. So before we get to the fundraising and the archives, the immediate thing is Homecoming and Family Weekend, which is essentially Saturday the 21st. They've got programming on the 20th and the 22nd, but the 21st is the big day. And so we want a presence at the noon to 2 event, which is essentially the big celebration. There's going to be a parade of vehicles down the quad. I don't know quite how that'll work, but that'll be interesting to see. And we're going to have a presence there. We'll have a table with the step and repeat backdrop so people can take photos with the Out at Oxy logo behind them. We'll be handing out the fans that we've got. We'll be handing out pins to any alumni who want them. And we talked about having some people stay at the table and other people going through the crowd. That really depends on how many people we have there, what kind of a presence we've got. So I'll do a separate outreach to the committee members who aren't here, probably in the next week or so, and just try to get some commitments to it. Let's see. If we've got enough people, we might designate one person to just do photograph duty, to take people's phones and take their pictures and then hand their phones back to them. And let's see, and if you're planning to attend and you haven't registered yet, please do it now, because some of the events are running out of space. There's some limited capacity for certain things.
And I will drop that registration link in the chat room in just a second here.
Okay. And I think it's also in the on the agenda, so you
Okay.
can click it there too. We also talked about possibly having a pop-up happy hour Saturday night. So we'll look at that. We'll see how many volunteers we've got, because if there's only 3 of us, it wouldn't be much of a pop-up happy hour. I mean, it would still be nice to socialize, but it won't. I don't see it being as big of a thing. It'll be much more casual.
And just a heads up, Daniel, the results that came in from the poll in terms of Friday or Saturday were literally split 50-50. So,
okay.
You know, some said Friday, some said Saturday. So just let you know.
That works. Any comments or questions, or anybody plan to be there with me?
I'll be there.
Awesome.
Where?
This is we're talking about Saturday, the homecoming. Out at Oxy will have a table in the quad along with some other affinity groups who have to share their table with another affinity group, but Out at Oxy has their own table. Just want to let you know that. There we go.
Oh,
As we should.
Kevin, did you get the banner?
Yes, that's being delivered
Okay,
on
cool.
Monday. And I just put a link to the registration in the chat if anybody has not registered that's planning on coming.
Yeah, just send me a couple pictures of like people around the banner so we get good logo visibility, and I'll put it on the Instagram. I'm sorry, I'm at a wedding, so I'll miss homecoming weekend.
Will do.
it's a good excuse. So what I will do is I will send out a note in the next week or so to all the committee members and just see who's planning to attend. And Jake, I'll probably copy you on it just so you're aware of it, even though I know you won't be able to.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions about homecoming weekend in just 2 weeks? Week and a half. No, 1 week. No, it is 2 weeks. Sorry, I'm flying out in a week.
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks. Yeah. Okay, so as KB mentioned, the Queer Archives are getting a start. Rodney Hoffman, who was the professor pictured in that hero photograph for the Rainbow Connections article, has donated a box of materials. He was supposed to donate it at 1 o'clock this afternoon. So that happened probably about, almost 2 hours ago or 1 hour ago at the library. I'm on East Coast time, so my math is terrible. But we are working on funding a student to handle the materials and to develop also an Out at Oxy oral history program. The library staff is extremely supportive about this, and they're very enthusiastic about the project. So this is a good start. So funding the student to handle the materials brings us to the fundraising question.
Can I ask one question about the archives?
Oh, of course. Yeah, sorry, of course.
Have we talked to, I think it's called the One Institute in Los Angeles, to see if they have any material or if they're interested in helping? Because I know that they have collected information about LGBT organizations in LA over the last 45 years.
Well, they at least have my senior thesis on Prop 6. So
Hey, Keith. Awesome. So Keith, since you're familiar with them, this is a question of all of us stepping backwards while you stay in place. Do you have any contact there you could go do outreach to?
I can shoot him a note, you know.
Yeah, just ask if he's got if he or she or they have a anything that's related to Oxy that they might be able to share.
Okay.
Awesome, appreciate that.
And granted, we might be able to share copies of what we put into the Oxy archive with them, because a lot of organizations do that.
Yeah, Oxy's archives. I just saw an email that Occidental Library has joined a very prestigious archive association to digitize everything. That's essentially what their goal is, and so I think it'll be really easy for them to share all of the materials that we are able to get together. So I think that's a really good idea.
Daniel, by any chance, is that the JSTOR organization? No, that's digitizing everything. No.
No, there's a sort of an archives institute. I don't remember the name of it because I saw the email in passing, but saved it to examine later. But it's sort of the goal of most archives or archivists out there to digitize as much as they possibly can, just to make it more widely available.
Okay.
And it's this is sort of the creme de la creme of the organizations that organize it, and it was a pretty prestigious thing for Oxy to be to join it. So
Great.
There's going to be a good focus on that.
Just for note's sake, who is contacting that organization about potential archives?
Oh, Keith Malone.
Okay, Keith, and what is the name of the organization again, Keith?
The One Institute at USC.
Thank you.
And just for those of you who like to nerd out on this stuff, the One Institute is really ultimately the.
Does this have a regular Whopper by itself?
Regular Whopper by itself?
Yep.
That's okay.
I'll have a
Jake.
milkshake, please.
Go ahead.
The One Institute really combines the old National Gay and Lesbian Archives and the One Institute. Yeah, they brought together a number of things, surprisingly, in an old fraternity house at USC. So of course, so many boxes checked off with that. So.
Thank you.
Somebody burned a lot of sage in that house.
Maybe Phi Sig has something to contribute.
Class of
As they did in my day.
Class of 87, maybe. The senior that year who was the president of SAE is part of our community. So
Is that person involved, Daniel?
Yeah, he's been trying to. He's just really busy, but I think he'll be on campus on homecoming weekend. But he was at our Pride event 2 years ago. Let's see. Anything else on the Queer Archives? Any other questions or comments? So now to the really interesting stuff. Fundraising. How do we pay for these people? The student, the scholarships. As was outlined in the Rainbow Connections article, the Eric Drazen 79 Lambda Fund was the final name for the fund that Keith here and Jerry Meeks and a few others put together. And Melissa was involved in that too, I believe.
It was.
Yep, to assist students who came out to their parents over breaks and were suddenly kicked out and had no resources to get back to Oxy or even a place to stay. So that fund was established. It has something like $119,000 in it, and the income from it, it's an endowed fund, so it provides income every year. That income was being restricted to the specific use that it had been detailed in its charter. And it's less and less of a concern. It still happens, unfortunately, but it's not something that is as prevalent.
Yeah.
But Oxy Financial Aid has taken a look at it, and they've expanded its charter to essentially just assist any queer student who needs financial aid. So that's been expanded.
Good, because at one point we realized we had restricted it so much, and it felt like, and the impression we got from the administration was that we couldn't alter it. So we were just kind of like, and it sat there and kind of went dormant. So it's good to know that they're fiddling with the requirement.
And you know, they I think that it depends on the administration, but this administration was very open to expanding that.
And just a little background, there was a big case with Princeton and a similar thing, a fund that the original reasoning for it had no longer was in standing. And there was a legal battle between the family and how the fund was being used. So all philanthropy was looking at that one case for the exact same reasons of what happens when the purpose changes and you need to make a change. How do you go about doing that legally? Because it is a binding contract when it's designed for a certain thing. So we've gotten past that, and I was glad to hear that Oxy's got the flexibility to make changes with that.
I mean, the college has a history of doing that. I mean, the Blythe Fund originally was only men, and only during Daniel, me, and Lisa's time did they start to break that apart, and they kind of tiptoed around it. So yeah.
God,
that was crazy.
Those wild 80s.
Well, and do you think that's what's because at the time the fund was more broad and they didn't want to say, hey, it's for gay people, Keith? Or was it just not that it matters historically, but
I think the will left it open. The committee that we had there, which was me, Jerry Meek, Melissa, Laura Pellegrin, George Barrett, class of 79. We did it that way, and I don't think we were thinking that we were on the cusp of kind of a new dawn, and that there were, and so at some point I think there was almost immediate regret, like crap. But I don't even know if in the will it was that restrictive. So that was really, to me, I don't know. It just, working with the college at the time was just, everyone was hand wringing about everything. So
I think a lawyer would say, and I'm not a lawyer, but I watch Law and Order on TV. A lawyer would say that if the family who created the fund is around and might sue you for using it differently, it's an issue. But I don't know that would be the case here.
That is that's exactly it. It really depends on the descendants and how since they have a legal standing in terms of how it's used. If they're okay with it, no problem. The university or college can make the change. But if by some chance they are sticklers about it, then it can be a legal battle. So.
And just to reassure my 85 classmates on the call, the contract that Joe and I signed on behalf of the class of 85 fund is that it goes into the general fund, general scholarships. So
thank you.
We're not going to suddenly have it restricted in the future. Let's see. So that was an update on that fund. However, there are other needs out there, and Maureen Royer has put together a list of them, and I won't go through all of them, but you can see them in the agenda. And the reason that she put that together is because we've already had several potential donors approach us to talk about designating funds to Out at Oxy. One who's a current donor who wants to designate funds over the next 5 years, and another who approached us about leaving funds in their estate. So to the points made earlier, yes, people can designate to one of these funds. They can't designate to Out at Oxy because we're not a fund. So that's sort of where it goes. But that means that we have to do a good job of publicizing these things. We have to say, we have to show everyone where they could potentially donate, and that's really the need. So for us, it's a communication thing.
So we, out of Oxy gets X number of dollars from somebody at the college every year. How much is that?
5,000.
And you're saying that there's no way to augment that with donations from other people, or it can be augmented, but not as a tax deductible donation to Oxy?
KB, I'm going to drop off. But
Okay.
the answer is we could take donations to Out at Oxy too if we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really does depend in terms of how it can be used. So people can say, I'd like this directed towards Out at Oxy, but it might go to the general fund. And honestly, him turning it over to me, mine is the engagement side. So I wish Maureen was here because she could really speak to the specifics of it. But that was part of the meeting last week, was how do we go about allowing people to designate funds to Out at Oxy? And the answer was they can designate it to a scholarship fund or some type of designated fund. But since we are not a not-for-profit standalone, we're an affinity group, we're a group of volunteers, all they can do is say in honor of, but with that, the general fund, we can take things that would not get the tax deduction. People can do this. So if one of the donors that Maureen is working on wants to give something to the Lavender Lounge, they can do that. They can give us designated funds for a particular project. It may or may not be tax deductible. That part I'm not sure of, but Maureen had pointed out the Saga students, there were certain things. There's a LA Engage program that sends students to significant queer sites and events in LA. Someone could donate, a donor that Maureen has been working on, to cover transportation and admission, that kind of very concrete expenditure of those funds. The Lavender Lounge is looking for an upgrade. Right now it's like cinder blocks painted lavender and, but not great furniture. So I would leave that up to Maureen for the tax deduction part of it. But I do know people can give to Oxy and say, I want this used for this particular project. They may or may not have the ability to get a tax deduction on that, but they can say, this is how I would like it to be used. And I think that's what Maureen, because these donors were saying, I'd like to give, but I want to give towards these particular type of projects. Did that answer your question, Les?
Yeah, but I think it would be good if in a future meeting, Maureen or somebody kind of clarified the different ways that people can contribute, what's not tax deductible, how to do that if they want to do that. I mean, I can't write a check out for Oxy. There's nobody to endorse it and deposit it. So the example I came up with is we talked about we didn't have enough funds to buy more than a few hundred lapel pins. And I thought, well, gee, if somebody wanted to donate $1,000 for you to buy lots of lapel pins, could they do that? And that would be a concrete way to find out, yes, they can, or no, they can't.
Yeah. I know Maureen wants to be at these meetings now that she just got a new title. They decided she'd been doing an acting VP with the Vice President of Advancement stepping down a number of months ago. But I can certainly get her a message and say to her, we'd love to have a clearer understanding of how donations can be made to Out at Oxy, what's tax deductible, and we can share that with you guys outside of the meeting, just so everybody has that information.
And share with the members of Out at Oxy.
Yes, oh, absolutely. To share with this group and people that may not be at this meeting, but they'll let you know. And that could be included in the notes. Like I can say, Maureen's going to put something together so we have a clear understanding of how people can donate, what's tax deductible, what's not, so that we as a network can say to friends, if you'd like to donate, you can do it this way, and we would be more informed with it. So I'll make a note of getting that message to Maureen. Okay. In Daniel's absence, I'm just going to go through. We have gone through the three kind of goals of this meeting. We were last on the funding and the fundraising. So kind of the result of that will be to try to get a clearer understanding, something that we can share with the leadership committee here. And I think that the next thing on here was really potential roles. So Daniel would love to have a co-chair, and that's something we can put out to people, again, who aren't necessarily at this meeting. We can recruit other people that might be interested, but he can really speak to what that entails in terms of time. The biggest thing I know as kind of a volunteer manager is we need to let people know how much time they should be expected to give. That's their donation, right? Is their ability to do things, after hours. So I think it's imperative that Daniel be able to look at what he's done in the last year and be able to clearly articulate to somebody, if you were to join in this capacity, these are the things you would need to be doing. And it may be meeting, once a month, once every couple of months. It's 2 hours a month, it's 4 hours a month. And that goes the same for these other committee member roles, such as communications, social media. Jake has been putting stuff up on Instagram for us, but do we want to have somebody step up and say, that will be my role, that will be my title? The archives project, one of the most important ones, and this is really only for locals, is someone to be the saga liaison with the students. We have learned from the other affinity groups, it is more productive for us to support a student event than for us to try to create an event to attract students. And the support can be anything from showing up, buying some pizza and soda, from our funds, that kind of thing. But I know of the roles that we're looking for, that would be the one I think that would be one of the big ones to fill, is if somebody can, again, it'd have to be somebody local. It's not, so I know Lisa's, chomping at the bit. She'd love to fly in from Chicago, but there's only so much that we can do to do that. So let's see. And then the next thing we had on here was just that Daniel is coming out from Atlanta next week. I'm going to have lunch with him on, I think, Thursday, and then Friday we begin the homecoming family weekend, and then Saturday is the day in which we'll have that. It's just a little after 2 o'clock. We've kind of covered everything. As I'd said earlier, we may not use all of this. Are there any questions or anything that I can address in Daniel's absence that people may have?
No.
Okay, there's one that I want people to start thinking about. Our next meeting, and we don't have a date for that, but it will probably be a Friday in November, possibly the 3rd, but we will send out a calendar invite for that. We had talked about doing some type of virtual event, wine tasting, tea tasting, something like that, that there are companies that make it really simple for us. We charge people a certain amount. They ship the stuff to them. The wine company that I had worked with a number of times is called In Good Taste. They do these wonderful individual tasting bottles. They'll do a flight of about 6 to 8 different wines. They will ship them to people a minimum of 2 weeks before, all for the fact that if there's any breakage, it gives people time to say, hey, I got this, 1 or 2 are broken, and they were very responsive. They don't charge anything extra. They just realize it's part of doing that. But it's a great way to engage people, East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, try to find a time that works for everybody. So I'd like people to just think about, if you have participated in something like that, any suggestions would be helpful, because we do want to try to do something to engage people that they can see, hey, this is something that I can do from my home. And then afterwards, it can be a social thing. Usually the wine tastings take about an hour. And then people are a little tipsy and the conversations tend to flow a little easier. But that's one I would recommend, but it really is up to this group to decide what they'd like to do.
How many people do we have on our mailing list?
Well, let me check real quick. And that's the one we're talking about with our listserv, right? With the one that we have ourselves.
Yeah, that we send out about anything having to do with Out of Oxy.
Yeah. So let's see. The national group has, hang on a second, because we broke it down into two. The national group has 311 email addresses, and the Southern California one has 131. Southern California, I think at your encouragement, Les, we expanded it to make sure we included Palm Springs. I think we just decided to do all of Southern California, not 50-mile radius or whatever. It's just like from Santa Barbara down to San Diego. You know, let's include people and do that.
So if you have 300 on the national list, then because my first comment was going to be, we really need to focus on increasing the number of people we know about and might be interested in coming to an event like this before we decide to do an event, because you're liable to get a very, very small percentage of the people that you invite to come. But I didn't realize the list was up to 300 already.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, I think that I don't think an event like that is going to increase our list, but it might interest people that are on the list to get involved and hear about exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just, before we go, I wanted to share with people, this is the report from the most recent query that we sent out to folks. Let me just get my screen so I can see here. We got a total of, I think, 15 respondents. As you can see, the Friday night was evenly split in terms of when to do some kind of impromptu gathering. I think Saturday's a better night for it. People are traveling. Not everybody can make it on that Friday. This is the breakdown of other activities. The cultural events and the Out at Oxy events were the two kind of winners in that. Nothing really for the local volunteers. And remember, it's only 15 people that responded. Not everybody responded to all of these. Where are you interested? Los Angeles is clearly the winner. Bay Area, San Diego, DC.
Makes sense.
Yep. And then, let's see, hang on a second here. Oh, and so here's some other cities that were suggested. Portland, Iowa City. I wouldn't have thought of Iowa, but hey, that's just me. New York. Now that's one that we had not delved into, but you know, that would mean I would just take a look at that list of the 300 and some and really just determine where we have, you know, the core number of people. Denver, Orange County. And I think that was, make sure I have all of that on my screen. Yeah, and here we go. And the fifth one was, would you serve on the Oxy committee? We got some answers on that. And there's somebody who suggested we honor Kai Allen 10, helped create the Lavender Grad cultural ceremony. So that's one of those where it would be great to go back to the person that made that comment and ask them if they're interested, because if they've got a passion for this particular person, here's a way you can do it. You can be engaged, you can drive this if that's something you want to do. So we go back to the more people we can get involved, the more people we can engage, both allies and you know, other folks. And you know, there's no harm in kind of expanding that that process. So
one other point, and that's that I think if you compare alumni or homecoming weekend to alumni weekend in June, about who attracts more people from outside of Los Angeles, would you say that the alumni weekend does?
Absolutely, because the alumni weekend, people are coming here. First of all, while we invite alums to come to homecoming weekend, it's not really designed for alums.
So my point is that we should really focus our energy in increasing the membership on the June alumni weekend and have lots of efforts and activities and pins and stuff like that. And since my 50th reunion is next June, and I will be there, and I know there are other queer people who will be there, I really think that should be some of the focus of what we do over the next few months, is get ready for that.
Sure. Yeah, anybody with those, you know, class years ending in 4s or 9s, particularly as we share that list that I shared with you all, you know, if there's people that you know on it that are from those classes. And another reminder, you don't have to be a class year to attend reunion weekend. To your point, Les, is that we can reach out to everybody and just say, here's a gathering of folks, come on by. If you're in LA, if you're local, we'll be doing things that we'd love for you to join. So
Well, and I remember 20 whenever years ago, Keith arranged to let everybody in the LA area know that there was going to be a gala reunion, you know, on some lawn at such and such a time. And I would say that there were a lot of people there that weren't there for alumni weekend, that just were in town and came to the event. Keith, help me here.
Yeah, it always was really interesting because alumni weekend always coincided at that time with LA Pride. So you get a boost in attendance, and whenever it was out of sync with it, you could just see the correlation of the discorrelation, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, the weekend is the June 7th, 8th, and 9th, I believe, off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me, but I don't know when the Pride, LA Pride is, but
it's later.
Yeah. Okay. But it just makes sense. It makes a ton of sense, Les, is to go ahead and put our focus towards having some kind of program ourselves at that weekend. It may not be necessarily on campus, but we've got a core of people there. Why not? You know, so yeah. Okay. All right, great. I see Daniel is back, not camera necessarily, but he's on. There we go.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was still muted and camera off, but I'm back.
That's all right. So we went through pretty much the agenda. I shared responses from the survey. Les had pointed out, you know, if we're going to try to get people engaged based on the survey, you know, homecoming weekend, we will definitely get more people interested in reunion weekend, which is geared towards alums, and it doesn't have to be their class year, but that might be it's kind of smart for us to do our focus on that. Of course, we'll participate in this reunion weekend. I'm sorry, homecoming weekend, but reunion would be really the one to put our energies towards.
Yeah, and I know that we had talked. I'm sorry. Go ahead, jump in. I'll come back.
Keith, did you have something you wanted to say?
We can talk about it later about the mailing list.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing that we did 2 years ago over reunion weekend was we had our own separate event, and I think that's what I walked in on you guys talking about, and that's definitely something I would like us to do again. So I'm fully behind that.
Can you repeat when the reunion weekend is next year?
Yeah, in June of 2024, I believe they're Friday, the 7th of June.
No, it's 7th,
7th, 8th, and 9th.
Yeah, 7, 8, 9.
Right. With the primary and the Sunday the Sunday's really just for the 50th class. They've got a brunch, and there's not anything really going on for others. Mostly that's a travel day for people. So really Friday the 7th, Saturday the 8th are the 2 days to target.
I mean, if there's a space on Saturday afternoon, that's usually when you can get people to come from around Southern California who are not there for alumni weekend to maybe participate.
Yeah. And also, just from a planning standpoint, a couple of years ago, we did a designated event at the ICC. Then last year, there was concern that we didn't want to be kind of off campus. We wanted to be on campus. There's plenty of time to work that into the program. And if you want to do an event that is, you know, more by invitation, you know, we can do that. We just want to make sure that we plan it and make sure we designate a space to do something like that. We will always have the affinity group gathering reception, but that is everybody, and it's not a way to really distinguish oneself.
So it needs to be on the invitation and registration where people check off they want to go to the gala event at the time and whatever, and maybe they'll miss a lecture on, you know, crocodiles or something, but they'd rather be at the gala event.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the goal is definitely to have a separate venue and not really make it invitation only, but to just have it standalone.
Yeah.
And have it be advertised on the registration form so that it's not, I mean, it's really a clear event.
Right.
Because I believe, don't they send the invitations for alumni weekend to everybody, not just the classes that are involved, or do they only send it to the classes
Everyone.
involved?
It goes to everyone.
Marketing wise, I believe they send it to everybody, but there are certain communications that just go to class folks. So everybody will get the link for registration and encourage them to come, but then there are separate invitations that come from the classes to their specific class mates for their dinner and other things like that.
And we can take on that role using the listserv as sort of as the class committee. So we can certainly publicize it.
Yeah.
And encourage people that we publicize it to invite others they know would like to come.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that might be a good segue into what Keith was about to talk about, which was the
mail list. You know, when we first started, it was a restricted, locked down, separate but parallel mail list in the alumni office. Tom, whoever was head of the computer science, the computer systems, what was his name? Never mind. I'll remember it in a moment. But the alumni office was really super cool about it and allowed us this kind of semi-separate, you know, mailing list that not everybody could access. But the problem is, and has been up until recently, is that because we were dealing with so many people that weren't out, and so we would have these series of hurdles that made it really difficult to kind of collect emails and have people come forward and say, add me to the list. And so, you know, food for thought. I mean, it strikes me the alumni office doesn't have, of all the affinity groups, they're kind of relying on people, you know, us, for example, us finding people we know, adding them in, but there doesn't seem to be options on the website for alums to say, hey, add me to this list or these lists. And so that might help some of that sort of recruitment. And again, the more people, obviously, the more attendance, and also a bigger pool from which to draw potential leaders or eventual leaders. And so that to me is a discussion, I think, obviously with the alumni office and how do we do this? And I suspect the other affinity groups would be going, yeah.
I can speak to that a little bit, Keith, because it's interesting. The other affinity groups, the one in particular I'm thinking of is the Black Alumni Organization. So we have to rely on how students were coded when they were students, that they participated in something that was a Black student event, of an event with the BAO, something like that. Because if not, we are not allowed to identify someone, even if when they applied as a student, they were like, I'm a Black student. We cannot say to them, you're a Black student once they graduate, because they have to self-identify.
Exactly. And
right.
but there's no mechanism to allow us to do it unless you have to call the office. Can you add me to the list?
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's just
or include that message, Keith, in the next, and continuing to include that in our communications, that we always have something that says, like, if you know folks that would want to join out at Oxy, please, you know, share this email address with them. All they have to do is send us an email and we will add them to the list.
Yeah.
So I like the idea though that Keith has, which is and this is volunteering the alumni office, obviously, and probably Cully, who's the IT guru there, to create maybe a page for all affinity groups and publicize that page so that you can go down, you can check box each one that you're associated with, because, you know, you could easily have somebody who's in 3 or 4 of them and put in their email address and their contact information and have them sign up. And I think that would, and as Keith said, I think that all of the affinity groups would welcome that.
Yeah.
And it could go into, you know, like like at the bottom of every one of Dana's, you know, emails to alumni.
Yeah. No, I don't see anything. I mean, I got to run it by Dana, but I don't see any reason why we can't do that. And it helps us because our hands are kind of tied. It's like, we know
Yeah.
this person's black, but we can't say to them, you're in this group, without their
Right.
permission. So
Right.
yeah, that's a good alternative. I think I like that. I will share that with my one-on-one with Dana on Tuesday.
Yeah. And for us, we've had the additional hurdles of privacy issues. I mean, they're far less than they were, but we still have at least a couple of generations of alums who are like, so it makes it hard for us to go out and recruit. It just is laden with landmines. So having that ability for people to easily self, it's like, go here, boom, done.
Yeah.
We don't have to participate in it. And
make it as easy for people as possible for them to be able to say,
because we're at
And
go ahead.
So when
I
I
was gonna
get,
say,
oh, sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
no, you. I've been
Well, I was going to
dominating.
say, so when I get fundraising and solicitations for different kinds of fundraising activities at Oxy, they've got 1,000 little surveys or other things you can go online. Could we stick something in those? Check a box. I'd like to be out at Oxy. That's all,
Mhm.
or if you do, because then if you don't, you don't. And if you even are in the community and you don't want to participate, you're not. It's not like we're asking you for something that you have to decline.
Yeah.
We're asking you to engage. So
Yeah.
nobody would say it's coercive, right?
Right.
Here
We're not-
about privacy, that stuff.
Yeah. Right. It's
Yeah.
it's just an opt-in. It's just giving people the opportunity to opt in.
And that would hit a broad audience, and they send them out regularly, again, and it's not to ask us necessarily or to get money back to the fund that might be dedicated to us. It's mostly to all of this discussion, get people engaged, involved. Maybe.
Yes. And it does work for all of the affinity groups because it's the same issue for Latino, Latinas, So, okay.
Well, and you're sending it to every alum, and that way you're not like, oh, let's figure out who the gay people are and send it to gay people. We're sending it to all the people because maybe they, maybe they weren't out at Oxy and we didn't know so and so. Like, honestly, Daniel and I have someone we know. I didn't know he was going to become a gay man, and then he did, and so like he wasn't out at Oxy, but he's out now. So we would miss those people with the attribution.
Yeah.
So even
The other
the
thing
article-
is, go ahead.
Even the article about the rainbow connections at the end, it would have been great if you're interested in finding out more about this organization, please email X.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A missed opportunity.
Yeah,
Well,
I
here's the
feel
other
it.
thing is, could we be asking some of our class note people? I think, is it Rich Miller? Ours would do it, I think, for 85. Like, we could put it in the class note people. Hey, if any of you are interested in joining out at Oxy, join it here and send me your class note. I mean, you do have a tendency for the people who reply to reply, but somebody might see that in their class note solicitation and join.
Yeah. And that again could be for all the affinity groups. That's
what I was just going to say, because we have people who would associate with our group, but they could also be part of the Black alumni group. They could also be part of the teachers group. They could also be part of the Asian Pacific Islanders. I mean, there are all of these different groups that they could feel associated with, which is why if you are setting it up that way, you definitely want to do check boxes so they can check all the ones that they want, and they can only have to enter their name and add an email address once instead of having to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And that gives us, go ahead, Les.
Well, I was going to say, what would, Les, I'm sorry.
That's right. Lisa, go ahead.
Well, Daniel, you just made me think that's a very intersectional viewpoint, and that might be something we could tell Oxy is look at the intersectionality of some of your GLBT alums. We're Black people, and there's race, there's all kinds of things. We are not this kind of monolithic group over here.
The bottom line for Oxy is that alumni are more engaged when they have a reason to be engaged, and being part of an affinity group is an additional reason to be engaged, in addition to remembering their roommate or their dorm or their favorite professor or what they, whatever. And I would think the alumni office should take the lead in this. I think it should go in the Occidental magazine. And I wouldn't recommend it be done by class. I think it needs to be a general thing worked by the development office and the alumni association.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And for us from the fundraising side, anything we can do that is not asking for money helps balance out the yearly solicitations that we are offering you ways of engagement, ways of doing stuff, and we're not asking for money. We just want to do this for you. So
they will give more money, and they will give more money.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will share this with Dana, with Cully, because as you pointed out, it doesn't have to just be out at Oxy. It can be for any of the affinity groups, and it should be, because we're not a monolithic group. There's like different people for different things they want to check those boxes off. So
exactly.
I think we should do all the things, all the class notes, and put it in the mag, like all the things, you know, because somebody might not read X, but they get the class note on social media, or like whatever their convention is. Definitely the social media people have done, I think, a really wonderful job also of doing, you know, I see it, they push it out, but you have to be looking at that. So, you know, if you're not the person, if you're not on a social media platform, but you get the mailing, that might be the only entry point for you.
Yeah. And before I forget, I wanted to share with you all, we got a note from the communications director to let us know that the Rainbow, was the title, was Rainbow
Connection
got some of the highest open rates of the digital magazine. It was up in like the top 3 for what people were reading and looking at. So it was clearly a very good article, and it got some very good responses from people. And I'm glad I remembered, because it was like, there was something else I wanted to share with you guys. And so I finally remember what that was. So yeah. All right. The only other thing, Daniel, I wanted to check is our next meeting would be Friday, November 3rd. Kind of the same time. We are trying to do like the first Friday of the month at this time. And there will always be a recording of this and notes that will be sent to people for them to look at their leisure.
Yeah, I was wondering, do we have programming immediately? We don't have any programming in December that we need to be involved in, because we're going to sponsor the finals field. That's it.
Yeah.
And then there's no programming after that until well into the spring.
Sure. We had talked roughly about, I'd mentioned this to folks while you were away, about trying to do something virtual, whether it was wine tasting or something else. But
yeah, that works. Because I was going to say, maybe we skip November just to give everyone some time off, but I think I would rather skip December if we're going to skip anything. So yeah, let's plan on November 3rd, if that works for everyone else.
I'll send the calendar invite and the Zoom link. Okay. All right. Was there any other business for folks while we're here? Super. Okay. All right then.
My apologies for dropping off.
How's your sister and your nephew, niece? How are they doing?
Sister-in-law and nephew, and they're doing great. They're here for college visits. So.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Good. All right.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Very much appreciated.
Have a great weekend.
And apologies for dropping off.
Bye.
No problem.
See you all later.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.